Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? We're going to get back to Iraq because it looks like ISIS might be on the move. In addition to that, I get to allow people who listen to my videos show to me and the whole world just how smart they are by proving I'm wrong on certain issues and their explanations. So this should be entertaining. Let's get started. Before we get started, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. If you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Miles Franklin. The link will be down below in the description. When you make your purchase, make sure you use promo code Pimpy, P-I-M-P-Y, and they'll take care of you. If you have any additional questions, you can reach us over here at this phone number or over here at this particular email. For all orders over $10,000, reach out by email and we'll make sure that you get a great deal. So come on over to Miles Franklin and add to your precious metal inventory. So Iraq raises its gold reserves to exceed 145 tons. Iraq's gold reserves rose significantly during February 2024, as IMF data showed that Iraq had increased its possession of the precious metal by 3.079 tons, bringing its total to 145.661 tons. This increase indicates that Iraq's strategy continues to diversify its foreign reserves and promote long-term financial and monetary stability. So congrats to Iraq by adding more gold to the reserves, just like you people out there should be doing the same thing. Now this is interesting and becoming a problem. Islamic State claims attack on army post in northern Iraq. Islamic State claimed, I don't know why they call it Islamic State. Why don't you just call it ISIS or Daesh, because that's who they are. So ISIS claimed responsibility on Tuesday for an attack on Monday targeting an army post in northern Iraq, which security sources said had killed a commanding officer and 4 soldiers. The attack took place between those provinces, a rural area that remains a hotbed of activity for militant cells years after Iraq declared final victory over the extremist group ISIS in 2017. Look, Iraq's buying jets and stuff, so they should be able to handle their own. The issue that I have with this whole situation is when Maliki was the prime minister, he was allowing ISIS to come into Iraq. As a matter of fact, the generals of the military complained about this, saying that they were told to stand down and allow ISIS to come into the country. Talk about treason against your countries, but yet that guy still holds political power within Iraq. Iraq post-war reconstruction cost put at $174 billion. Budget based on an average oil price of $70 per barrel. Well, wait a minute. What do you mean reconstruction cost? I thought they couldn't do it at an exchange rate of 1,320 dinars per dollar. OPEC producer Iraq has projected spending of 228 trillion dinars, 174 billion in 2024 to fund post-war reconstruction, an Iraqi official said. The budget, which will be sent to parliament shortly, could be projected far below the level of forecasted deficit of 75 billion dinars or $57 billion. Spending and revenue will be projected at 150 trillion dinars or $114.6 billion. But actual expenditures could reach 228 trillion dinars. See how they give you a price both in dinars and dollars? So Iraq is moving forward with more reconstruction for the country. All right, so let's have some fun. Let's see what kind of smarty pants I have in my group, shall we? Here's when the people in my group get a chance to show the whole world that they know better than me, and they're going to try to prove me wrong about certain subjects when it comes to the Iraqi dinar. So let's start with Michael here, who is responding to Sheila. All right, so let's go. So when we look back at the United States, for example, that had the $1, $5, $10,000 banknotes is what he's talking about, and such, which were used for interbanking until around 1969, it's clear to see why they would have value. Obviously, those eventually went obsolete with technology and risk of money laundering. While actually the United States is one of those countries, I believe, all their currencies are still good. Even the old ones are considered legal tender. But in this case, the country just printed out, now he's talking about Iraq. But in this case, the country just printed out all these notes and allowing international purchase, which includes countries and corporations that they are now doing business with. And it is silly to say they would revalue after giving citizens the lower denoms that make the 3-0 notes obsolete. What are you saying? Okay. So they didn't say anything about a revaluation. They're just talking about a redenomination at the moment. So there's no revaluations. So not only would you destroy relationships, but also ruin value and cause inflation. So he's talking about the deletion of the zeros off the Iraqi dinar. He acts like Iraq is the only country who's ever going to do a redenomination. It doesn't destroy relationships. You just have to make sure you communicate to them that that's what you're going to do. It happens. Other countries have done it. As long as there's communication, there's no problem. And if you're set up right, you won't have to worry about inflation. It's also super illogical to say that a 25,000 dinar would become 25. That would be a wash. Is it illogical? Really? Because that's what a redenomination is. That's when you take the zeros off the old currency that they have, like this here, and exchange it for a new currency without the zeros. See that? So I don't know what he means by it is illogical. Countries do it way more often than you think. So all this trouble for a wash. All what trouble? All the meetings and planning and budget meetings and such to come out even? So you mean to tell me that the meetings and planning and the budget meetings were all to talk about the deletion of the zeros? No, that's not what they're doing. They're doing normal, everyday business. They could have begun construction and development years ago if that were the case. When you have the leaders and the CEO of Chase Bank come out and say Iraq will be the financial savior of the world, you have to consider what that means. No, the CEO of Chase Bank did not come out and say that Iraq was going to be the financial savior of the world. So, Michael, why don't you do me a favor and why don't you pull out that article where the CEO of Chase Bank states that Iraq will be the financial savior of the world. These are words used by militiaman. He said that. Nobody out there said that. As a matter of fact, I tell you what, find me an article in which anybody states anywhere, any article that shows you that Iraq will be the financial savior of the world. As far as construction and development, they would have started years ago. They did. Reconstruction didn't just start. It started back in 2003. So I don't know what you're talking about. You have to consider what that means. Yeah, it means nothing. What does it mean? Nothing. That's exactly what it means. The world, does that mean more than Iraq? I'm not sure what you're saying there. The world, does that mean more than Iraq? Yes. That means that countries outside of Iraq must benefit from all of this, and we know they do not have the lower denominations yet. Therefore, the 3-0 notes must have value ahead, or they wouldn't have gotten them. You know what's so cool about this? When I see posts like this, this gives me insight on how a lot of my listeners think and what their process is. So all he's doing is giving you his opinion on what he thinks is going to happen. It's not backed by any facts or anything at all that he can use to prove what he's saying. That's the difference for a lot of these content creators. They just say mumbly jumbly like this without bringing the receipts like I do. As a matter of fact, I'll show you. So he's saying that countries outside of Iraq must benefit. No, they don't. Not at all. See, this is what a lot of you don't understand. What's going on with the Iraqi dinar has nothing to do with you guys or anybody else outside of Iraq. It's all about Iraq and the Iraqi people. They're not trying to make the world rich. That's not their plan. So he says they do not have the lower denominations yet. Well, that we're aware of. Therefore, the 3-0 notes they have must have value ahead or they wouldn't have gotten them. If people are unaware that Iraq is going to move forward with a redenomination or deletion of the zeros or a LOP, then they wouldn't have known about timing, whether or not to buy Iraqi dinars with the 3 zeros on them. So this doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let's face it, these governors in corporations know what the number will be. Without a doubt, they have contacts we'd only wish we'd have, but overall they haven't been collecting these 3-0 notes on hopes and wishes. Why would governors and corporations be collecting dinars with 3 zeros on them? And what do you mean they know ahead of time? How do they know ahead of time? Oh, wink, wink, because they got a connection. Yeah, that's what it always is. The secret connections. Yeah, they know ahead of time. No, they know when the world tells them. But I like how people think that governors and politicians, famous people, presidents, are all buying Iraqi dinar because they know that the value is going to go up. So they're holding on to it so they could be rich. That's not the case. All right, Michael, let's see how you did, okay? Rebuilding Iraq, U.S. achievement through the Iraq Relief and Reconstruction Fund. This came out in February of 2006. Rebuilding Iraq. In April 2003, Congress approved approximately $2.5 billion largely for immediate relief and aid, such as food, medicine, and water, through the Iraqi Relief and Reconstruction Fund. Today, 97% of these funds have been dispersed. In November 2003, Congress added $18.4 billion to the IRRF to help Iraq with general reconstruction needs. As of February 2006, we have dispersed 10.5 of the $18.4 billion funding projects in the security, economic, and political spheres. 83% of the $18.4 billion has been obligated to projects. We have detailed plans for projects using the remaining funds that will be completed before the close of the fiscal year 2006. Iraq's reconstruction needs are at least $55 billion. That's per the UN. So they have already started reconstruction. That's why I think this is funny. No, LOL, they could have begun construction and development years ago if that were the case. He's talking about the deletion of the zeros. He doesn't realize that reconstruction started long ago. Here's back in 2019. Getting reconstruction right and wrong. Lessons from Iraq. Bitter experiences of reconstruction in the last 2 decades have made international communities hesitant to engage in a robust reconstruction activities. Iraq's reconstruction after the United States-led invasion in 2003 contributed significantly to the reluctance. Between 2003 and 2014, more than $220 billion were spent on rebuilding the country. What are they doing? They are rebuilding the country. Once again, rebuilding the country. So reconstruction started long ago. So Mike, I don't know what you're talking about. So for Mike or anybody else, show me the article, an actual article in which anybody said that Iraq is going to be the financial savior of the world. So close, Mike, close, but no, not really. Aha, look at Asar. He loves taking chances. At least you got to give him credit. He tries. His view on the deletion of the zeros is dropping zeros off the notes, not the currency. See, he put the exchange rate here. How many times have I said this? And he still gets it wrong. This is the 25,000 dinar note that we have now. Here is the exchange rate, 0.00076. How many times did I say when we delete the zeros off, it also comes off this right here, the exchange rate. Off the notes, not the currency. Wait, listen to this. His view of the deletion of the zeros is dropping zeros off the notes, not the currency. What? That is the currency. The banknotes and the currency are the same thing. I keep telling him the Central Bank of Iraq stated both sets of notes will coexist for 10 years in the market, which means we still will be in possession of the 25,000 dinar notes outside of Iraq. He really thinks we have to swap our notes like we are Iraqi citizens. No, I never said you guys are like Iraqi citizens. The reason why the two currencies might coexist for a while, it just makes the transition much smoother the longer you take. Sure, we'll still hold the 25,000 dinar notes, but let me make myself perfectly clear. Once they re-denominated and your 25,000 dinar loses its zero and is now a 25 dinar, just because you have this banknote, what do you suppose that means? I'm sure Azar thinks we get to swap our 25,000 dinar with the exchange rate like this and we can make a lot of money. No, the two currencies can exist for 10 years, but there will be an understanding that even if you have this note, the people that are dealing with the currency already know that the true value is here. So it doesn't make a difference if you have it in country or out of country. Either way, eventually you have to swap the currency. As far as thinking you guys are Iraqi citizens, but nice try. You guys are getting good at this. I'm just kidding, you're not, really. Here he is again. Keyword, old currency. The Central Bank of Iraq isn't classifying the 25,000 IQD note to be an old currency note when they are still going to use the note for banking larger transactions purposes. What? Only the citizens inside of Iraq will swap out their notes for their daily day-to-day use. Day-to-day and daily are the same thing. I have articles to support the CBI not voiding out notes day one. No, of course they don't void out the notes day one. I never said they do it day one. But eventually they're going to tell you that you have to swap your old currency for the new currency. And they're going to give you a time frame. If you don't make the swap by then you're just holding on to obsolete dollars. Here he is again. Carol Ann, only if you live in Iraq. Good Lord. I do not use the IQD, so I'm not a part of the currency swap out inside of their country. Y'all act like you shop using the IQD or something, and this is where you all are confused at. Please explain to me why the Central Bank of Iraq will state both sets of notes will coexist for 10 years in the market. That's because when the country re-denominates, the longer you take, the smoother the transition. But just because you have 25,000 dinar note is going to be treated just as if it was the 25 dinar note, regardless if the zeros are there. See, why are you talking about us shopping with the IQD? You're not making any sense. But let me help you. So first things first, people keep asking, how can Iraq do reconstruction with the current exchange rate? Understanding Iraq's reconstruction efforts. To understand how Iraq is managing its reconstruction efforts despite challenges like currency exchange rate, we need to devolve into the various aspects of the country's financial situation and reconstruction initiatives. Funding source for reconstruction. Iraq's reconstruction is primarily funded through a combination of sources, including international aid. After the fall of Saddam Hussein's regime, international donors pledged significant financial support to aid in Iraq's reconstruction. This assistance came in the form of grants, loans, and technical expertise. Oil revenues. Iraq possesses vast oil reserves, which serve as a crucial source of revenue for the country. The income generated from oil exports plays a vital role in funding reconstruction projects. Currency exchange rate impact. The fluctuating currency exchange in Iraq can indeed pose challenges to reconstruction efforts. Here are some key points to consider. Inflation concerns. A volatile exchange rate can lead to inflationary pressures affecting the cost of imported goods and materials essential for reconstruction projects. Budget constraints. A depreciating currency may limit the government's purchasing power and ability to finance projects at previously estimated cost. Well, right now, the Iraqi dinar is appreciating, not depreciating. Foreign investments. Unstable exchange rates can deter foreign investors from engaging in reconstruction initiatives due to uncertainties regarding returns on investment. Mitigating exchange rate risk. Despite these challenges, Iraq employs various strategies to mitigate the impact of currency exchange rate fluctuations on its reconstruction endeavors. Hedging mechanisms. The government may use financial instruments like forward contracts or option to hedge against adverse exchange rate movement when procuring materials or entering into contracts denominated in foreign currencies. Diversification. By diversifying funding sources and revenue streams beyond oil exports, Iraq can reduce its reliance on a single source of income vulnerable to currency fluctuations. Stability measures. Implementing sound monetary policies and fostering economic stability can help stabilize the exchange rate and create a more conducive environment for reconstruction activities. That's how they're able to fund the projects using the current exchange rate. And for those of you who keep saying stuff like, we're not shopping with the IQD, Pimpy thinks we're Iraqi citizens. We're not in country. Only in country people swap the currency. You're wrong, Sparky. When a country deletes zeros off its currency, the old banknotes, remember like he said, the CBI has not designated the currency with the 3 zeros as old banknotes? Well, when you do a re-denomination, that means you've created the new banknotes. So the ones with the 3 zeros become the old banknotes because they're no longer used. And then you have the new banknotes. So the CBI doesn't have to designate it as old banknotes. But anyways, it said the old banknotes held outside the country typically need to be exchanged or converted according to the guidelines set by the issuing authorities. So even though Iraq said they might coexist for 10 years, eventually you have to swap them. even if you're outside of Iraq, and even if you're not an Iraqi citizen, or that you shop in Iraq. Exchange period. Usually when a country undergoes a currency redenomination by removing zeros from its... Whoa, what does it say? Usually when a country undergoes a currency redenomination by removing zeros from its currency. I believe it was Pimpy who said that. There is a transition period providing for exchanging the old banknotes. Sorry, you paying attention? Exchanging the old banknotes with the new ones, or converting them into the new currency at designated exchange centers or banks. Exchange process. This process for exchanging old banknotes held outside the country, sorry, you paying attention? May vary depending on the specific instructions issued by the central bank or monetary authority of that country. This could involve partnering with international banks for facilitating the exchange process, because there are people out there going, man, we can't fly out to Iraq to exchange our currency, which blows my mind. How did you get your hands on the currency that you have now? Did you have to fly in Iraq to get the IQD? No, you found a location or a facility that has the current banknotes and you bought them. Validity period. There is typically a deadline set by the issuing authorities within which the old banknotes, sorry, you paying attention, can be exchanged or converted. After this period, the old banknotes lose their value and become, whoa, Asar, what does it say? Lose their value and become obsolete. And who did you hear that from? Pimpy. International coordination. In some cases, countries may coordinate with foreign central banks and financial institutions to facilitate the exchange of the Asar, look at old banknotes held outside their borders. This could involve providing guidelines on how and where to exchange the old currency. The what currency, Asar? The old currency. Communication. It is crucial for the issuing authorities to effectively communicate with its citizens residing abroad about the currency redenomination process, including instructions on how to exchange their old banknotes, Asar, exchange their what? Old banknotes, and any relevant deadlines. Impact on value. During a currency redenomination, the value of the currency is adjusted by removing zeros from the denomination by maintaining overall purchasing power. Therefore, holders of the old banknotes should not incur any significant loss in value during this process. That's why I say here, when they do the redenomination and they remove the zeros, it comes off here as well. The value of the currency stays the same. They don't lose any value whatsoever. See here? See here? It's still equal to $19. $19. But better than that, because people go, well, you keep taking things and paste them and you type them up and we don't know where it came from. That's because I read articles like this. See how long this is? Yeah. So that I don't have to go through and try to read it all to you. I take out the part that's relevant and put it on a piece of paper and then read it to you. But for the sake of you learning, like you should, I'm going to post this link down below in the description so you can read about this. New money. They're talking about a redenomination. And I don't want people to go, man, this isn't about the dinar. This is about the money used in Turkey. You're missing the point. This whole thing is about when a country goes through a redenomination. And in this case, the Turkmen are being used as the example. So I know you don't want to hear all this, but you can come and read it yourself. I want to come to here. Redenominating a currency means administratively changing its face value. In itself, a redenomination makes no one richer or poorer. $19? $19. Nobody got richer, nobody got poorer. So I guess all those governors and corporations, well, Michael, I guess that would be called a what? A wash. So no governors and no corporations get rich off this. So down below here, when it's talking about the redenomination process, it said, in its plan for the currency reform, because we hear that all the time, banking reform, currency reform, the central bank must decide how to handle the soon obsolete cash currency. The what? Sorry, paying attention? The obsolete cash currency. Michael, you paying attention? The obsolete cash currency. Old banknotes that have been exchanged for new currency should be immediately invalidated, obsolete. via ink marking or holes drilled in the currency. I have the old Saddam Hussein dinar. There actually is a hole drilled into his head. After the second counting, and then invalidate banknotes should be destroyed by shredding or burning. So what happens to the old banknotes? They're obsolete. What ones are the old banknotes? Well, if they decide to move forward and re-denominate or delete the zeros, they would have a new Iraqi dinar, a new looking dinar with the zeros missing. That means the currencies that we have would then become the old banknotes. So they're not going to be obsolete day one. That's ridiculous. You have to give people time to make the changeover. And they're not talking about people who just live in Iraq or people who shop in Iraq. They're talking about people outside the borders in other countries as well. So the currency does become invalid and becomes obsolete. And then they destroy it somehow, whether shredding or burning. In line with common international practices, the Turkmen Central Bank allowed the two sets of banknotes, the two currencies, the ones with the zeros and the ones without the zeros, to be circulated during 2009. By 2010, all banks were expected to exchange the old currency for the new currency. And after that, the old currency was demonetized and retained only numismatic value. In other words, only collectors would be interested in the old notes. So anyways, they explained the whole entire process in here. I try to spare you guys from having to do this, but since no matter what I say, people don't believe me, and because I make notes like this, for some strange reason, these don't have any credibility. You can go ahead and read it all yourself. So you can see I know what I'm talking about. This is how you know, out of all of us content creators, who does the real research, who does the real deep diving. So when you read it yourself, you need to go back to some content creators and go, whoa, I read it myself. Everything you say is a lie. Pimpy was right. Anyways, that's it for now. Do me a favor and leave a comment if you're still misunderstanding. And then I'll get back to you later. That's it for now. I'm out.